Hi, and welcome back to another episode here of Innovations in Patient Care. I'm your host, Jamie Davis, the Pod Medic, and I'd like to invite you to join me for this special segment here from EMS Today 2014. And we're here in the Physio Control Podcast Studio, where we are bringing you another one of our amazing and fantastic EMS 10 awardees. And I can't say that enough. I mean, there's really the innovation that we've seen in this year's class of EMS 10 awardees is pretty incredible. And just going to jump right into things here with Sean Maxwell. Sean, do me a favor and introduce yourself. You know, tell me a little bit about where you're from and your background in EMS.
Okay. I actually started out in rural EMS in the Met Howell Valley in the Cascade Mountains with a service with Aero Met Howell Rescue, and we did regular EMS service as well as wilderness rescue, and then went to paramedic school, moved into the fire service about 17 years ago, and then I now oversee the EMS operations for one of the larger departments in Washington State.
Excellent, excellent. Now, what did you get your award for? Tell everybody about a little bit about your project and why you were recognized as an EMS 10 awardee this year.
Well, I guess I'm humbled that I'm recognized.
Well, you should be.
I guess
not that you should be humbled. You should be really excited because it's quite an honor, and congratulations to you. But you know, people want to hear about these things.
Well, I believe this. I believe this could take EMS to the next level. I think it is that big. It's ridiculously simple, and sometimes simple things are best. As we're learning in this complex world, I think we're just. We have so much stuff coming at us in EMS with privacy laws and electronic reporting and capnography and iStats. It just keeps flowing, and the level of complexity, it's overwhelming for the human brain. And we're going on these calls, and our quality and error prevention is expected to be better and better with all this. And
that's not necessarily the case, is it?
Yeah, I was working on some different committees, and I was like, well, we've got all this science, and it's really interesting. We love to research all the pathology and disease. We love to figure out how to fix things, but we miss the third step, and that's the applying the intervention every time once we've figured it out. And sometimes they say the other two are really interesting and the third one isn't. Everybody likes research and science, but the intervention right there on the street that makes a difference, applying the knowledge, gets missed more often than we realize. And I think the IOM came out and said there's 400,000 preventable medical errors a year. That's almost one a minute. That's 3 747s.
And they're preventable.
Yes.
They're absolutely preventable. And so you reached into the hospital side of things and found a resource that hospitals have been using for a while now.
Well, and aviation's been using them since the 20s.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those epiphanies saying, well, we use them in aviation, and look at their error rate is so small compared.
And we're talking about checklists.
Yes.
Just a simple checklist.
It's a checklist. The nuclear industry using it. All these high consequence industries use checklists so that experts don't forget the simple stuff. And so we took the top 10 evidence-based things where we know that EMS makes a difference. Like with a STEMI, really it's a 90-minute door-to-balloon, an aspirin, and 12-lead. Those are the only things that make a difference. And we made checklists for our top 10 conditions to make sure those interventions are done every time. And we're starting to see some real differences. In fact, another study just came out. I just saw it a couple days ago, and they showed with heart attack care. This was in the UK. They doubled the success in making sure all the proper interventions were done each time. And a perfect example is anyone who's been in this. You get to the hospital and it's like, oh, we forgot to put oxygen on.
Yeah.
Oh, we forgot to check a blood sugar. There's simple stuff, and we're experts, and we forget the simple things. But we're kind of taught that in medical school. Memorize everything. Everything should be in your head. You shouldn't have to look anything up in an emergency.
It's a huge. I think it's a huge cause for our error rate. Is that we have this expectation that we should not ever refer to our protocols. We should not ever refer to our quick resource guides because that's cheating. You know what? I'll cheat death anytime, anyway.
There's two just studies that really spoke to me, and one was they took a simple checklist and used it in 4 poor hospitals and 4 rich ones around the world. And it's does everybody know their name? Did you wash your hands? Do you have extra blood on hand? And they thought, oh, it'll reduce complications by 15%, and it cut death rates in half.
Yeah.
And these are the best surgeons in the world. And I emailed Dr. Atul Gawande of the World Health Organization in Harvard, and I said, what do you think of this in EMS? And he goes, well, that's interesting, because we just did another study on crisis checklists. Same things we do, heart attacks, anaphylaxis in the operating room. They took 18 teams, half the time they got to use a checklist, and the other half of the time they didn't, in a crisis situation, just like what we do. And the teams that use the checklist reduced their errors and missteps by 75%.
Wow.
To me, that's a mandate that this must become a best practice for us, because it's usually a once-in-a-lifetime event that somebody calls 911, and we have to do the absolute best care every single time.
And I've done that. You know, I've gone and taken that patient that's slightly altered for some reason, and for whatever reason I never got around to doing a blood sugar on them.
Yeah.
And you know, you feel like an idiot when the nurse asks you what's their blood sugar.
Yeah. And
the first thing they do is check blood sugar, and sure enough, it's what the problem was. But you were you for whatever reason, your diagnostic pathway led you in a different direction, and you got away from the basics.
Yeah. These cognitive aids make us successful, and they give our patients successful, better outcomes, and now the science is proving it. It's
excellent. So you've put these into place. How long have you been using them in your system?
Well, we started with the stroke one, and then we've moved on, and we went kind of full tilt for 2013 and developed. We release one each month.
Okay.
And it's a lot. Checklists take 25 to 50 revisions. I read that. I didn't believe it till I did it. They're very hard. Our physician, Dr. Campbell, is just as passionate, which makes this, we're partners in this, and it's just been amazing. And we take some of our greatest medic minds, and we sit there and just work on these, because there's flow, which order, and what's critical, because it's not a training aid, it's not a protocol, it's only the critical steps, because you don't have time to look through a protocol.
Right.
It's only the critical steps.
Yeah. Well, you know, I want to thank you for coming on, and one last question I'd like to ask you is, where do you see the importance for something like an EMS 10 award? Why is it important for us to recognize our innovators and our leaders for the rest of the industry to take notice of them?
Well, I think there's people out there that are passionate and they have ideas. I think not only does it inspire others to push forward on an idea, because a lot of times it's just staying persistent and figuring it out. And so hopefully it inspires other innovators. And also, just like the checklist, I believe these can help rural EMS that only sees a stroke every 6 months, or urban EMS where it's your 6th stroke of the day and you forgot what you did on which one. And I think it just spreads this, that it makes EMS an indispensable. The more things we can do to become consistent and reliable, that makes us indispensable to the medical community, to our citizens, and that's what I think this spreads.
Excellent. Well, Sean Maxwell, I want to thank you and congratulate you again for winning this award. It's well deserved.
Thank you.
And looking forward to more innovations. How can somebody get a copy? If they want to get a copy or look at what kind of checklists you're putting together, are they available for other systems to look at?
I'm willing to share everything. I am on Twitter. It's Checklist Medic.
Checklist Medic.
And you can get a hold of me that way.
Excellent. Fantastic.
And then it's Snohomish County Fire District 1 out in Washington, and you can get a hold of us that way too.
Okay, great. Yeah. Fantastic. I want to thank all of you for checking out this episode of Innovations in Patient Care. And again, we want to thank Sean and all the EMS 10 award winners here at EMS Today 2014 for their contributions to making EMS a little bit better in their corner of the world, and by default adding to the body of work that we can all bring to the table to make our jobs better. I'm Jamie Davis. As always, I want to remind you here, as we thank Physio Control for putting this podcast together and bringing this to you, to remember to stay safe and stay tuned here to Innovations in Patient Care.